Hi, today is a solo episode. I'm going to be sharing with you what I do in moments of overwhelm to take care of my physical and mental health and how I get going again when I've had a little bit of I'm just going to say falling off the wagon, if you will. I find myself in this season of overwhelm right now with the spring, the end of the year. And I know I'm not alone, as we'll get into in a minute. And so I wanted just to offer you an opportunity of what I do when I'm feeling overwhelmed and maybe haven't been as committed to some of the practices that I normally am, like how I get back at it, how I get motivated, where I find inspiration, how I make it happen. And then I'm going to share with you my morning routine in hopes of just inspiring you if you need a little bit of I don't know, creative mojo to get going on a new routine for yourself and make some new habits. And then finally, offer you just a little bit of support if you could use it in this season. We are starting what's called the Mindful Reset on May 11th, and it's going to be an accountability group because I know we're all feeling a little chaotic right now, a little overwhelmed with life. And sometimes you just need a buddy to check in on you and be like, hey, did you get a little walk in? Did you eat something good today? Did you get a meditation in? So this is just like a little gentle nudge that we all sort of need, an accountability group to find a little more support in this season to make sure we're taking care of our physical and mental health. So I will share about that at the end, but you can find the link to the Mindful Reset in the show notes. And I hope you join us. We're beginning May 11th, and let's get into the show. Hi, kids. Hi. It's just me and you again. Whew. The other day, I was sharing on Instagram how I have been feeling really overwhelmed with the season of life I find myself in with the kids, especially because it's the end of the school year and it's about to be the start of summer. And this is our busiest time of the year. And I know it's like back to school and end of school. I just can we just skip those? Midsummer, I'm great. Mid school year, I'm great. It's those transition seasons, ooh, they get you in those seasons. I find it really hard to continue to prioritize my well being. So things like, I don't know, getting to yoga or getting a meditation in or eating something that I know is somewhat decent for me feels impossible. And it's the thing is, I know all the things to do. It's not rocket science. We know how to take care of ourselves. Yes, get out and move, get in some sunshine, put the phone down, go to bed. And yet it's tough right now. I am on my phone more than I'd like to be, checking my email, printing out forms way more than I'd like. And it doesn't feel great. So I wanted to jump on here because when I had shared an Instagram about feeling this way, and I was like, is anyone else feeling this way? I was overwhelmed by the amount of women who said, yeah, me too. So I know I'm not alone in feeling this way. And if you are listening right now and you are a woman, because let's be honest, it's all of us, whether you are a mother or not, it's anyone in this season. The expectations on women is so overwhelming and impossible to meet, right? Society has so many expectations on what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to take care of ourselves, the roles we're supposed to play, that it is impossible to do all of the things. And then especially you find yourself in this season of life that we find ourselves in, whether it's politically or with our kids, and the calendar year, it is just it feels like a lot right now, right? Is anybody else feeling that? It's whoa, things are intense right now. So I hope you know that if you are feeling this way, that if you are yeah, my well-being is not where it used to be or where it was even a couple of months ago, if you're maybe not as committed to some of the things help you feel well and good, I just want you to know right there with you, right? And I'm really trying to practice what I preach. And so I wanted to have an episode today just to be really honest with all of you about how I take care of myself, how I prioritize my well being when things are overwhelming. Because let's be honest, it is really easy when things are smooth sailing to be look at me taking care of myself. I'm getting yoga in and I'm meditating every morning when nothing chaotic is going on, right? It is when shit hits the fan to be okay, how committed really are you to these practices? Can you practice what you preach? Do you really love yourself enough to find the space and the time to take care of yourself? And what does that look like? How, what are you giving up? Because let's be honest, we can't fit any more in to our days. So we have to obviously get rid of some things. So I wanted to share with you what I'm doing in this season and offer you a few reframes on the way maybe we look at things and just give you a little motivation if you're feeling overwhelmed or stuck when it comes to your well-being. And just want you to know that you are not alone. I think this is kind of all of us right now, kids. So nothing's going to change anytime soon, right? The world isn't going to all of a sudden start taking care of women tomorrow. Expectations aren't going to all of a sudden change. So, in the meantime, what can we do to make our own shifts and reframes? And I wanted to share with you kind of how I'm managing in this season. And then we're going to close it off. And I'm going to cringe even saying this, but I'm going to share with you my morning routine. Ugh, right? I hate when people share their morning routines. And yet I also secretly kind of want to know too. And I'm not sharing my morning routine to be like, look at me. I'm sitting on a bolster, drinking lemon water, meditating. Because let's be honest, like my days are chaotic, but I'm sharing it with you in inspiration, just so you can see, like, here's sort of how I'm making it work in my world, in hopes that maybe it gives you a little seed of inspiration to maybe change something up in your world. I think the most important place to start with this is just by acknowledging where we're at as women, right? We are in a really busy season, culturally, politically, just on the calendar. Like, this just is a really busy moment for a lot of us. And I think sometimes it can be easy for us, especially if we are like people pleasers or perfectionists, that at some point in our life, we felt like we had control of it. We had control over our calendars, we had control over our family's calendars, especially if you had young kiddos. There was a moment, I used to do this. I had a calendar and it was like highlighted, each kid had a color and it was super organized. And like, gone are the days of the color coordinated calendar because it is just so chaotic. And I just want to acknowledge, like, that's okay. It's nobody's fault. It's just the season we find ourselves in. And it won't always be this way. But I think the most important thing is to, one, just acknowledge that we're in this season and take out any shame that somehow it's our fault, that if only we organized our calendars better, if only we meal prepped better, if only we communicated better with our partners and made more lists, that somehow life would be less overwhelming. And like, sure, our list's great. I'm not saying like don't do that, but I'm just trying to really reiterate the point of life is full right now. And no matter what you did, it's still going to be full. And there's no shame. Like, I know we feel a lot of shame around it. We need to take the shame out of it and take away the idea that somehow we just aren't doing it well enough. And then if we were better at this, somehow we'd feel different. Life doesn't feel hard or overwhelming because you're doing it bad. Life feels overwhelming and hard because it is. It just simply is. Whether you have kids or don't have kids, whether they're out of the house or in the house, or you're working full time or not working full time, like, this is just a really full season, and that's okay. And it's not your fault. And you don't need to get better at it. Okay. We don't need to get better at life. Like, you're already doing amazing. I think what we need to do is take the expectations way down, quiet a lot of the noise, and just give ourselves an opportunity to slow down a little bit. I also think it's really important in these moments that we find ourselves, whether it's overwhelmed or whatever the season that we find ourselves, just acknowledge that it can be really tempting to say to ourselves, when things slow down, I will X, Y, and Z. When the kids go off to college, I will X, Y, or Z. When I lose that weight, when the kids are no longer in preschool, when my house is clean, then I will do this. Once I get dinner going, I will. There's always this exterior timeline or these things that need to happen in our lives or in our days or any given moment in order for us to do whatever it is that we're really wanting to do. And so I'm just going to offer to you, I know I am been tempted to feel this way too, of like, when we get through the end of the school year, then I will recommit to my yoga practice. And unfortunately, we know this, but how we take care of ourselves today is how we take care of ourselves always. Like, this is the moment. If you are finding that you are telling yourself, like, when things slow down, I will, I'm just going to offer you that life can be a little chaotic and it can be full, or the kids can be hectic, or things can be struggling at work, or you can be fighting with your partner, whatever it is that you're going through. There can be a swirl in your life, right? It can be that hurricane feeling. And there's always that eye in the storm. There's always that centered and groundedness that you can find in any one of those moments. But it's really hard because it's really easy to tell ourselves, like, I can't do it because life is too busy, so I'll do it later. And I'm just going to offer you that, like, in these moments when things feel overwhelming, we still can find a moment of groundedness and centeredness. There's no way we can add things into our life without taking some things out, right? Like, there's only so much mental and physical space in our lives. So when I am feeling overwhelmed like I am in this season, one of the very first things I do is just recognize what things in my life can I tune out. I might not be able to like physically not be able to do things, but I can certainly tune out some of the noise, if that makes any sense, some of that mental chatter. And one of the very first ones I'm just going to offer you that is universal for all of us are the expectations placed on women by society, right? Like about how we should look, how we should behave, all that. So we're just going to like put that aside, and then there's the whole like wellness culture of all the things that we need to be doing to take care of ourselves that I feel like was maybe intended to help us feel well and good. And I think now has just become like an impossible to do list of supplements and cold plunging and weighted vest walking. That is just like, not that any one of those things are wrong. Girls, like, please don't get this twisted. Like, I think the weighted vests are great. Whatever it is, like 10,000 steps, sure. All in all, like, those are totally fine. But when you look at it collectively, there is a really big push right now to keep women hyper focused on changing all these things outside of ourselves, to fix our bodies, to fix our skin, to, I don't know, fix our health and our, it's just so much. And so I'm just going to remind you that you always have the opportunity to tune some of that out and say, I see you. I get it. Maybe a weighted vest is for me. Maybe a new supplement is for me. Sure. In 6 months, I'll think about that, later down the road. But right now, I'm going to keep it really, really simple and tune out some of the outside noise. For me, the outside noise includes a lot of things. I have a lot of mental chatter around my kids getting older and the things I should be doing with them and trying to make everything memorable and creating these special moments. And I have these, what my friend refers to as these cherished outcomes that I like to tell myself of how things should look or feel, or what our summer's going to be like. And I have to like really take that mental chatter and turn it down. I have to also turn out the mental chatter of a lot of the stuff I see online. I have to turn out off the mental chatter of extended family who want nothing but the best and have nothing but the best of intentions. And sometimes it's too much. And so I tune out a lot of the outside stuff and keep it really, really simple. And I ask myself, like, what is it that I value? What is it that's important to me right now? And it most likely isn't, wearing a weighted vest and I don't even know what else, but like, what is important to you right now. And so I'm going to offer you the opportunity just to step back and ask a simple question like, what can I tune out? And how can I keep things really simple for me? And then from there, I ask myself immediately the next question of like, where can I create physical space in my life? There's an exercise I've shared before that I do sometimes with the women I work with where it's like we write a list of, get out a piece of paper, and you can even do it now or, when you're home because you're probably driving or making dinner or something. So don't get out a piece of paper right now, but you can make a list. You can make a mental list. And on one side, you write down all the things that you value. So for me, that would be like getting up and having a morning meditation, seeing the sunrise, moments of quiet time with my kids, cuddles, or laughing with JP. And then on the other side, you make a list, like a column of all of the things that you did today. I went to a PTA meeting. I hung out with this friend. I spent time on a podcast, whatever. I made this meal, whatever it is. And then we see, where is there overlap? And for some of us, there might be a lot of overlap. We might be really living in like full alignment. And then for a lot of us, myself included at times, there's a lot on that left hand side of things we value that we don't actually make time for in our days. Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of us don't have that luxury to do it, right? And there will always be things on that list, like paying the bills, going to work, taking out the trash, like maybe necessarily aren't our values, but like we still have to do because we're living in this physical world. But we're just talking about like just noticing, like, is there any overlap? Am I finding any moments of time where I can prioritize the things I value? And if that answer for you is no, then maybe it's worth re-exploring some things, because here's what's happened. It could be that your day is spent doing things that right now you no longer value. So just play with it. Just notice where your time is going. Notice what you say you value and notice if you're making any space for that. And then I'll give yourself permission to say, like, have my values changed? Do I need something different in this season? I will also say, in order to create space for myself in this season, I have to step back and check expectations with myself of like, what is it that I'm expecting of myself right now? And I'm going to use a really small example of something that I did today. So it's just me home with the kids, and my kiddos get up really early. My oldest sometimes has to be at the pool by 6 a.m. He's a swimmer. And then my youngest are at school. They would leave by 7:45. But anyway, to say we are up anywhere from like 5:15 with the kids. And then the last ones don't go to school. We're getting them out the door at 8. So it can be anywhere from like a 3-hour stint of like kids needing something from me in the morning, which means I find it really hard to take care of myself and get a moment of quiet for myself. And for a really long time, I valued making homemade breakfast for the kids, especially my two youngest are really big eaters. And my youngest like loves eggs. And so I'd always make him some scrambled eggs and make him some sourdough toast. And then I would have a smoothie. And I really like that time with him. I mean, I love it. And I'm sure if you're a mom, like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's important to me. And I knew this morning that if I didn't find space for myself to get out for a quick walk, even if it's just 15 minutes or a quick meditation for myself, like it wasn't going to happen if I didn't do it before the kids went to school. So I share this with you. Like I had to check like my expectations on myself. And this is a really small example, but I woke my two youngest up and I was like, I'm going to go for a really quick walk. Mom's going to be back. There's frozen waffles in the freezer. Put it in the toaster. I'll see you in 15 minutes. And now listen, I wouldn't do that if you're really, I'm not saying leave your kids unattended. I also have a 14-year-old and 16-year-old who happen to be home this morning. And so they can keep an eye on them. But I took 15 minutes and I went for a walk with myself. And in that moment, I prioritize my own mental health. And even if it was just 15 minutes to get out and see the sunshine over what I was feeding my kids this morning. And listen, this is, of course, a really small, silly example, but I'm just saying to you, we always have these moments where we have found ourselves in a specific role or playing a specific role and having expectations on ourselves of like, this is how I do it. This is how the morning runs. This is how our evenings go. This is how I handle things with the kids. And I'm going to say, give yourself an opportunity to play with that. It doesn't always have to be that way. You can say, actually, right now in this season, we're doing frozen meals or we're doing McDonald's, like whatever it is, like no shame in the game. Like you have to do what works for you. I think for a long time, I allowed my ego or my expectations of like what I thought a good mother should do come before actually taking care of myself. And it was so silly because no one was asking me to do that. The kids were like, Mom, you making us scrambled eggs is more important than you taking care of your mental health. It was something I told myself. I had convinced myself that like, this is what matters. This is really what I value. And you know what? For a long time it was. And now that season has changed and I'm in this busier season as many of you are. And so my expectations, the expectations on myself have had to change as well. And the only way I've been able to find a little bit of white space, these moments for myself, is by taking it from other places where I used to be giving my attention. JP and I talk about this all the time, this idea of like different buckets in our life. Like this is not a novel concept. I'm just going to offer you to think about it right now, just as you're listening to this, right? So we have like a marriage bucket. I have a personal development bucket, a kid bucket, an extended family, a career, whatever. And you have all these different buckets, like where you're spending your time. And at some times, like right now, I'm in a season where my kid bucket feels really heavy. It's a little overflowing. And so as I think about finding space for myself, it wasn't that like I just needed more time. I needed to take some of that out of that bucket and put it back in mine. And listen, I can't not pick them up from school and I'm going to show up for their last day of school and all that kind of stuff. So like, could I take it from the morning? Could I take even just 15 minutes from that bucket in the morning and give it back to myself? Does it even out my buckets? Hell no. It's still way overflowing on the kid stuff. But I feel a little bit more empowered that I'm no longer now this victim of like, I just don't have time for myself because that's not true. I do. I was just free willing, like giving my time away in places that didn't need it. Now, listen, if you are working outside of the home or if you have other restrictions on you, if you have children who are not physically able to care for themselves or you're taking care of elderly parents, like you're right, the spectrum looks so different for all of us. So I recognize that this was a really easy decision for me. This is a very like small thing. And some of these decisions are not quite as simple and will really require some difficult conversations and or push up against some old mindsets or identities that we have around how we should be or how we want to show up in a relationship. So I'm not saying this is easy, but I am saying that it's really important. And that if you are in this season of feeling overwhelmed and you aren't taking care of your well being, there's only one thing we can do. We're not going to find more time. So we have to look at the other buckets in our life that may be overflowing and say, where can I pull from? And we may not always have that luxury to be able to do it in this exact moment, but we're going to strive for that and work towards that. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're going to quiet the outside noise. We're going to ask ourselves, like, what can I mentally tune out? Like, what mentally can I set aside? What chatter can I mentally set aside? So, like, let's just say, like, we're going to set aside like wellness culture. We're going to set aside like outside family stuff. We're going to set aside like social media stuff. Like, we're going to set all of that aside mentally. And then we're going to ask ourselves, what is it that I value? Where am I spending my time? Do I need to shift some of that? Do my values and priorities need to shift? And where can I create a little bit more white space in my life? What can I take from? What bucket may be overflowing? Where can I maybe take my time back? Okay. So that's just where we're going to start. And then from there, we're going to start really small. We're going to do really small, attainable goals that we can celebrate and feel good about instead of having these big lofty goals that we like are not going to be able to do. So instead of setting myself up to be like, I'm going to make it to a 60-minute yoga class, I know first thing when I wake up, I'm going to go on my yoga mat and stretch for 5 to 7 minutes as Asher's getting in the shower. And we're going to take what we have and we're going to feel good about it. And we're going to celebrate those little micro wins. It doesn't always have to be so black and white or all or nothing. So I want you to start thinking about now, like, what are one or two things that we're starting really small that would only take, I don't know, even 2 minutes before you made coffee in the morning? Like, could you step outside for the next couple of weeks, every time before you have your coffee or maybe with your coffee, and put your feet in the grass and take a couple minutes to breathe? Could you, in the car driving to work, instead of mindlessly driving and not even paying attention to like what street you just crossed or like, right? Like so often we get from point A to point B and we don't remember getting there. Like, could you say on that drive to work, I'm going to use 5 minutes of it to meditate or just sit with myself in silence, turn the radio off and just find a moment of peace. There are these little micro moments we can find in our day. And I know it can feel exhausting to be like, great, now not only am I feeling overwhelmed, but now I also have to find these micro moments. But they're really easy, small lifts, and there's usually more of them available to us than we know. And if you can begin to build in some of these micro moments every day, the momentum really builds. Like it just naturally builds. I think sometimes what happens is we wait to feel motivated to do some of these things. And it's not going to happen that way. Like the momentum and the motivation comes once we put an action in. And so for me, for example, if I had a couple weeks, the past few weeks where I wasn't working out as well as I wanted, or I wasn't eating as well as I had been wanting to, I was feeling a little, I don't know, a little blah about it. And I was a little unmotivated to do it. And I like immediately knew, I'm like, this is so silly. Like you're waiting to feel motivated to change. And you're waiting to feel motivated to clean up your diet and get back in the kitchen and start cooking again. What if you just started doing it and see how you feel afterwards? And I know you girls know this, but like once we get moving, once we get going, they always say this, like a body in motion stays in motion. It's the same concept of like, once you start eating well, you keep eating well and you keep going. Like the motivation grows and the motivation continues. But sometimes you just have to be, you have to like want it bad enough to like be the catalyst of change, like get the ball in motion for it to stay in motion. All to say, I know you know this, but motivation is fleeting. And these small little daily habits you're building are long lasting, right? So let's not wait for the motivation. Let's just get up and start making those small little micro movements. And it's not about waking up feeling inspired every single day because there are going to be a lot of days that you don't feel like doing some of these things, right? You're going to be like, F Katie, I'm not going to put my feet in that grass or I'm not sitting and meditating, whatever it is. I get it. It's not about feeling inspired every day. It's about building systems that make it easier to show up for yourself when you don't feel like doing it, when life just feels overwhelming, because that's going to be a majority of our existence, right? We're not going to always feel like doing it. We're not going to, there are plenty of days I do not feel like getting on that meditation bolster. That would be so much easier for me to open my phone, or there'd be so many days that it'd be easier just hear the kids fighting upstairs and be like, I got to run upstairs and solve this problem. right? So it's not about waiting to feel inspired. It's about building those daily small little systems that just make it easier for you to show up when you don't feel like it. Because then you don't even have to put any thought into it. Like, this is just what I do. I show up for myself every single day. I turn on my coffee maker and I go put my feet in that grass for 2 minutes. Or when I drive to work, before I turn on the radio or before I hit play on a podcast, I take 3 minutes to breathe. It doesn't have to be big things, but you do have to get the ball in motion and stop waiting for the inspiration to come. Like, you be your own inspiration, right? And so for right now, when things are feeling really overwhelming, we're just going to start small. And then I'm just going to offer you this other idea of thinking about change. There's a concept around this idea of identity based change. And if you're not familiar with it, it's really simple. We're going to break it down. It's just the idea that lasting change, whatever that change is that we're trying to make, whether that's like to start a meditation practice or to eat healthier, is really rooted in our identity, like how we see ourselves, not in the action. So instead of saying to ourselves, like, I want to meditate more, and like forcing ourselves to go meditate, we allow ourselves to think of ourselves and know ourselves as someone who nurtures our mind every morning. So instead of saying, I want to meditate, we could reframe it and just say, I am someone who nurtures my mind every morning. Instead of saying, I want to eat healthier tomorrow, we remind ourselves, like, actually, I am a woman who honors her body with care and nourishing foods. It's just who I am. We have to be able to see ourselves as these people who are these women who do these things. We are this way. This was a really big kind of like unlock for me when I first started meditating. Because there was a long time when I'd always say to myself, like, I have so much anxiety, or like I yell at the kids and blah, blah, blah. And I would say, like, but I really want to start meditating. And instead reframe it to myself and like, actually, I'm a really centered, grounded woman, and really believed that and started living my life as that. So I'd wake up in the morning and I'd look at myself in the mirror. And I know it sounds so cheesy. And I just would say to myself, like, I am really centered and grounded. I am someone who is, and not like to like gaslight myself or to like, blow smoke up my skirt or whatever that phrase is. You guys, I'm so bad at phrases, but in a really honest way of like, no, I am someone who's grounded. I am someone who's centered. I do make time for meditation. Even if there are days that I didn't, like I told myself, not just told myself, I believed that that's who I was. And so if you are feeling overwhelmed right now and you're trying to make these small changes, it's just like, it may be worth stepping back and asking yourself, like, what are the stories we're mentally telling ourselves? Like, I wish I had more time for this, or I wish I had more time for that, or I wish I ate better. I wish whatever it is, or like, I'm going to do this X, Y, or Z. If you would just own and embody that that's the woman that you already are. You are a woman who takes care of herself. You are a woman who finds enough time to make it all happen. You are a woman who loves herself and takes care of herself. You are a woman who gets up and finds a moment of peace in her day. You are all of those things, but you have to believe it. Lasting change is rooted in the way we see ourselves, not in the actions that we take. So we are going to have these little micro actions, right? We're going to let the motivation build from there. And then we're going to start seeing ourselves as the woman that we know we could be. And on top of all of this, we're just going to be really, really darn gentle with ourselves. Okay. And how you show up today is one thing, and how you show up tomorrow is another. And no matter what happens today, there's always the next day. And every day you get to rewrite your story. And every single day, the slate gets wiped clean. So, I shared this the other day with this idea of like our well-being being like brushing our teeth. Like, if you didn't brush your teeth one day, you wouldn't, the next day, you're like, well, that's it. Didn't brush my teeth, never doing it again. You would just show up the next day and brush your damn teeth. And so I'm just going to offer to you, if maybe right now you're in this season where you aren't able to prioritize your well-being today, that doesn't mean that tomorrow is like thrown away. No, you wake up tomorrow and you ask yourself, like, where could I create a little space? Where could I tune out some noise? Where could I have a little small micro moment to take care of myself? And where could I maybe shift my identity around how I see myself? And you're going to start there. And you're going to have a lot of grace. And you're just going to show up day in and day out and see how it goes. Okay. I want to share with you a little bit about my actual morning routine. I find that mornings are my easiest time to take care of myself. Like if it's past 9 o'clock in the morning, I mean, I know I just share with you guys that I'd be like, if I didn't brush my teeth in the morning, I would just do it later. But like if it's past 9 o'clock, it's really hard for me to brush my teeth, metaphorically speaking. So the mornings are kind of my jam. I wasn't always this way. I was not a morning person. JP's such a morning person. My father-in-law was raised on a farm, and I think that JP has a little bit of that in him where it's like, get up by the sun is risen and you're not out of bed. You're behind. And so he gets up really early. And I remember always thinking to myself, like, I'm not a morning person. Again, going back to mindsets, like the things we tell ourselves. Like I had convinced myself I was not a morning person. And you girls, you know this, there's no such thing as not a morning person. You just make the decision to be like, I'm someone who gets up early and takes care of myself. And so I do. And I always say this to the women I work with, but your morning starts the night before. So how there's no way you're going to get up at 5 in the morning or whatever the time is that you set your alarm if you're not going to bed and taking care of yourself in the evening. Like your morning starts the night before. And so it is so hard for me. And as it is for all of us, I love staying up. Like if I could binge a little Netflix, like I just got into Yellowstone. If I could binge a little Yellowstone and stay up, I would. And I love a bath. I love taking baths at night and reading and doing face masks. Like I can linger like the best of them. And so it's been really, I'll say work for me to force myself to put myself to bed, which also sometimes means going to bed before my kiddos, which has been hard and, a new adjustment for me. But I really aim to be in bed between 9 and 9:30. Now, one of my kiddos, sometimes I have to pick up at 9:30. So that's a little bit of a struggle because then I'm not in bed till like 10 or 10:30, depending on their needs. But, I always say this, like you plan for the rule and you make room for the exception. And so I plan for the rule, which is go to bed between 9 and 9:30, and I allow for the exception. So that means there are going to be some nights that doesn't happen. But all to say, my morning starts the night before. It's so cheesy, but it really makes a huge difference. So putting myself to bed, I'm always like, this is a gift tomorrow. Tomorrow, Katie will thank me for. So if you're having a hard time getting up in the morning and you really are like, I would love to start a new morning routine, girls, we just got to go to bed. Like we just got to go to bed. Okay. So like that means we put our phones away, put our phones down, we turn off Netflix, we put down the glass of wine, like all the things, like we know how to do this. So just put it away, especially right now if we're feeling overwhelmed. If there's anything we can cut out of our life, it's time on our phone, time watching Netflix, and time with alcohol. Not that those things are bad. I'm not shaming any of them, but like this just might be the season where like, you know what? Right now, I just don't have a lot of extra time for you. So we put that stuff aside. I wake up pretty early. I try to get up at 5 every day, but most these days it's like more like 5:15, sounds early, but sometimes I'm like, I still doesn't feel like enough time, which I know is not true. There's plenty of time. But I get up at 5 and I always drink a huge glass of water as soon as I wake up. It just feels really good to me. That's like my morning liquid. It's like a big, like, I don't know, it's 2 or 3 cups of water. I just like chug it. And then I make my way downstairs. I always make my bed as soon as I get up because it just feels really good having a bed made. JP's already gone, so might as well. And then I head downstairs and I make lemon water because, again, it's just something I've been doing since we lived in Connecticut. So that was, I don't know how many years ago, a long time ago. It was when Frankie was born and he's 9. And so it's just a habit I've always been doing. It really like gets your digestive system going and it feels good for me. And I just like having something warm in my hands as soon as I wake up. So I make my lemon water. I also make my green tea. And then I take all of that over with me to my bolster. I do this every single morning, no matter what. Even if the kids are up, even if it's a Saturday or a Sunday, it's just like I make my lemon water and tea and I take all my hot liquids over to my yoga mat and I keep my mat out. I do not roll it and put it away. I know this isn't for everyone, but it's been a big thing for me to claim a piece of property in our home. That was like, this is mine. And these are things that I value. And so I'm going to make space for it. Just like we make space for the kids too. We have a Nintendo and Xbox. Don't judge. And we have space for that. And I'm like, why can't I have my own Nintendo space? So my Nintendo space is my meditation bolster and my yoga mat. It's rolled out and it stays out every single day. It's just a part of our world. And so my kids always know and they're welcome to join me on it. And so I go over there and a lot of times you guys, my kids are running around. I mean, if it's on the weekends, like they're up and they're moving. And there's sometimes that my meditation is a little bit later. And so they can be present. It doesn't have to be this like crazy peaceful moment when no one is around. So I move over to my bolster with my hot liquids, and I do a little bit of stretching. I do anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes of just some organic movement. It is in no way exercise, but it feels really good to just get the cobwebs out and just move my body. And this is something like, even though I'm feeling really overwhelmed with life right now, these are, and I said this the other day online, like I don't have any non-negotiables, but I actually do. And my non-negotiable will be my meditation and just a little bit of stretching. I would love to get a yoga practice in right away in the morning. It's not going to happen right now in this season of my life, but 5 to 7 minutes of rolling around on my yoga mat, doing a little cat cows, a little down dog, just a little like stretching, moving around feels so darn good. And then by that time, my liquids have cooled off. I do a couple sips of my lemon water, finish that, have a couple sips of my tea, and then I sit and meditate. And that is like my moment. And if there's anything that I would say, if you can't get in movement, if you can't worry about nutrition, if you can't worry about stress, like if there's certain things that you're just like, Katie, I can't worry about all the things right now. I can only do one thing. If I could just pick one thing for all of us, just one, it would be a small meditation practice. I'm not asking you for to do 20 minutes, but I am saying if you can do 2 to 3, maybe 5, if I'm pushing it, if I'm getting really asking for a lot here from you, it makes such a difference. And girls, you have to do it every single day. And I know we just talked about this before about being really gentle on ourselves and not putting pressure on ourselves. But I will say, getting it in every single day is the thing that makes a difference. It's like tuning an instrument, right? Like you wouldn't tune an instrument, you wouldn't start playing every morning without tuning whatever instrument it is, right? We are our own instrument. We have to tune ourselves, just check in with ourselves. And it doesn't have to be a lot. If you don't know where to begin on meditation, I have a whole episode all about meditation. So I'm not going to get into it here, but you can keep it really simple. You don't need an app. You don't need crystals. You don't need a hand mudra. You don't need to sit some fancy way. You can literally just sit on the floor on a stack of books, on a pillow. It doesn't matter. There's no way to do it wrong. Okay. All meditation means is to know thyself. So you're just sitting with yourself and you're just witnessing your thoughts. So you do that every single day. And I promise you, stuff comes up and you learn to sit with yourself and you learn to be with your emotions and you learn to stop riding the wave of the craziness of all the different things that our mind loves to tell us. And you start feeling a little more centered and grounded in your days. So I take my liquids over there. I do a little stretching. I get my morning meditation in. And then at that point in time, it's really rolling the dice these days as to like what the next thing usually looks like. I love to get out and just get a little bit of fresh air, get a little bit of movement, usually like a walk or something. But depending on what's going on with the kids or JP, it's kind of up there. I mean, I strive and try to get in some movement a couple of days a week in the morning, but I will be honest with you, the past couple of weeks, it's been really hard to fit it in. So as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, sometimes it's just a 15-minute walk, whether it's down to the beach or just around the block. And I take whatever I can get and make that be good enough. Every now and then when the kiddos get dropped off at school, I can make it to our garage. We have a little gym set up in our garage and I can get a little movement done in there. But it really varies. And then I'm off and running and the day is moving. I will usually take my shower and everything after the kids get dropped off at school. I'll run up and take a really quick shower. I do nothing when it comes to getting ready. I'm going to start doing more. I keep telling myself that, like, you know what? I'm going to start having like a makeup routine. Right now, it's out of sheer like lack of time. And again, remember we talked about these things of like, what do you value? I just don't value getting ready. Like it's not a priority for me. I know for a lot of women, it is a thing because it makes you feel a certain way, which I fully respect. As I started looking at the things of like, what could I cut out of my list? Like that was one of those things, like, I just don't really care that much about fashion or like makeup. I'm trying to care a little bit more, but we'll see how that goes. And then the day is running and things look, so different every single day. But again, then like my nighttime routine is something that I've been really cultivating this past year. It's like focusing on that. My morning routine was so set and I was so structured and so committed to it. And that felt really good that I was like, you know what? I need to do the same thing for my evening routine. So I've been a little bit more committed this past year, focusing on just like my sleep hygiene. I know it sounds so cheesy, but really just focusing on like, you know what? I know I really want to watch Yellowstone, but like, I'm not going to do it tonight. I'm just going to go to bed. I share all of this with you not to encourage you to drink lemon water in the morning and to start a meditation practice and stretch. You have to figure out what works for you, but I'm just sharing this with you to say that my morning routine has really evolved and changed over the years. I first started doing a lot of these things when Frankie was just born. He's 9. So it's been a while, and I have gotten way less structured and way less rigid about what my mornings look like. And the looser I hold my mornings, meaning like I aim for the feeling, not necessarily for the actual activity that it is that I'm doing. So sometimes that means my meditation is up in my bedroom or it has to change. Remember, I said earlier, like I plan for the rule and allow for the exception. So, yes, would love things to look and go a certain way. And I work with what I have. I'm really gentle on myself. And I have one or two things that are really important to me. The rest are, it would be nice. Would it be nice if I could get a 60-minute yoga class in? Absolutely. Would it be great if I could go for a longer walk? Yes. And there are a lot of days that does happen. There's a lot of days that that doesn't happen. But the things that are really important to me, going back to what it is that I value, seeing and knowing that I am a woman, right? Going back to identity, like I am a woman who is centered and grounded and at peace. And a woman who does that keeps her commitment to herself and gets up and sits her ass on that bolster every single day. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you need to do. I'm sharing with you this like pick the thing that you know is important to you. See yourself as a woman who shows up and does that every day. You start really small and you hold that commitment to yourself. Now, with all of this being said, I know a lot of us can use a little accountability in some of this. And sometimes we just need someone to kind of hold our hand and to do it with us. And I had shared the other day in Instagram when I said, would anyone like to kind of recommit to some of these wellness practices together? And I was really overwhelmed by the amount of people who said yes. So we will be starting the mindful reset on May 11th. I recognize that that's Mother's Day, and I promise I won't take up a lot of your time. This is something that you will do on your own. It's just for 2 weeks, and it's just 2 weeks for us to, as we just talked about earlier, to quiet some of that outside noise, find a little bit of white space, play with what it is that we value, like ask ourselves, like step back and ask yourself, like, what is it that I value right now? How do I need to reframe and see myself differently? And where do I need a little extra support? And so this group is that extra support. There will be accountability pods built in here. So you will have 3 to 4 women who will be checking in on you daily to be like, how's it going? Where do you need help? How did your meditation go? Did you get that walk in that you had been wanting? Just someone to kind of talk through and play with these things. Because I know sometimes it can be really hard to make these changes alone, especially when we're already feeling overwhelmed. So you will have 2 calls, virtual calls with me in the group. So you'll see me. You can ask me all your questions you want. You'll have access to me for those 2 calls. And then you'll have a library of meditations or audio and video meditations. You'll have a library of mindful movement practices. So it's literally my yoga practices that I do, and it's literally the meditations that I do. You will have those. And then I'm going to send you just a 2 week mindful eating plan. So, like, here are some ideas if you want to clean up your diet a little bit. It's really just focusing on whole foods, nutritious foods, things we already know, but just a little bit of inspiration. It's not a diet. This is not a workout plan. These are just really like giving you permission to focus on things that you know help you feel well and good, and doing it in the support of a community. So if you are interested, registration is open. You can find the link at the bottom of the show notes and head over to Instagram or on my website. We begin May 11th, and it's just running for 2 weeks. So we will finish the group right before Memorial Day weekend. So we will be going into the summer feeling a little more grounded, a little more empowered, a little more confident, and really like turning our wellness like back inward towards ourselves and finding these small micro things that we can do every single day that help us feel really well and good. So I hope you will think about joining us. And I hope this episode was helpful and give you just a little inspiration into finding a little peace in this busy season of spring that we all find ourselves in. And I just want you to know, too, on top of all of this, that you're doing an amazing job. The fact that you're even listening to a podcast that's talking about our mental well being, my God, like you're doing great. We're doing great. I think we can be really, really hard on ourselves and really judgmental on ourselves and carry a lot of shame about, like, oh, I wanted to lose those extra 5 pounds, or I wish I didn't yell at my kids, or I wish blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, you are doing great. Ease up on yourself, lighten the mental load, quiet some of that chatter, and go to bed tonight with a really calm, happy heart, being proud of the woman that you are and how you're showing up in the world. I know out of everything that I can do for myself, the number one thing that I can do is just watch the way that I speak to myself and talk to myself really kindly. And when I'm going to bed at night, like quiet that noise. I just feel really proud of how I showed up as a mom and as a woman and just for myself. So, anyway, I love you. Thanks for listening. And I will see you all next week.